Welcome to the Gray Matters, where we discuss more than just the hot topics and headlines of the day from a black man's perspective. We appreciate that we are not a monolith and every subject deserves to be explored with nuance, giving a view from all sides of the culture. So, we're here to hopefully bring that to you every week with a little bit of class, some fun. Our panel consists of three guys that are absolutely nothing alike, and you'll soon come to find out just how much we love each other in spite of our sometimes very big differences. I'm Billy Craig, and once again, I'll be your moderator for the day, coming to you from the first state in the Union, Delaware. As always, our engineer, Andre, joins us from Nashville to Music City, and sitting in for Paul, who's under the weather this week, Mr. Mike Drop himself, Robert Anthony, joining us from Atlanta. So let's see, gentlemen, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
I'm hanging in there, man. It's been a good week, I think, for the most part. So ready to get the topics going so we can knock this out. We'll try to do our best in Paul's absence since he normally adds that spice to us.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he gets us dirty, but I got a feeling that I got a feeling that I'm about to say I got a feeling Robert. He ain't gonna have a problem. He ain't gonna have a problem with it. I'd say just sprinkle a little bit. All right, there you go. So let's get to our first topic then, and I want to make sure I frame this the right way. When we think about the Black community in particular, there is a well-known stigma that surrounds health, particularly mental health. And so what I wanted to do is more so than just asking a question, was almost open it up like this. How do we have real conversations? How can we start and develop more real conversations around mental health in the Black community? I know for myself personally, especially in ministry, I deal with it a lot. It's not just, Black people, obviously. But what I find is that the people who actually get help and the people who actually recover from different tragedies and different abuse or different things like that, most of them recover because they're willing to actually deal with it and seek professional help. I've told people for years, like even right now, I see a therapist every other week. And so I'm due next week and I'm gonna need it, because talking it out helps. But how do we maybe open up those conversations? Or is it none of our business to deal with other people's mental health and encouraging them? We'll start with you, Andre.
Yeah, I think the first thing to do, I guess there's a couple of factors. One is access, right? One of the things that, a lot of African Americans through time had experienced was jobs that may not have had mental health as a benefit. And other part was just knowledge about it. Like we always thought it was just a white thing. Like white people just go lay on the couch and they sit there and talk out their problems and that's it. Like it wasn't seen as a Black thing. Now, why that happened, I actually have no idea. Like only thing I can paint back to is the lack of trust that a lot of Black people have just in different people. Like I don't want to tell a stranger my problems. I barely want to tell the people I know my problems because all they do is go around and spread it to somebody else. And so there's this sense that like you're weak if you need help. And Black people have, I don't know if it's just the fact that we've grown up in a time where we couldn't show weakness, we couldn't show vulnerability. But I think that leads to this path of destruction that a lot of us are currently on. I mean, we got a lot of people that are turning to, drugs and we've always had alcohol. Like that's one thing that, America as a whole has always had was we had, drinks, but now it's turning into like ODing is now also a Black thing. Like, I think me and Billy, we had this conversation where oh, like black people smoke weed or something like that. Maybe, then when that crack epidemic came, but people weren't ODing on crack. Like but now we got like the Baltimore Ravens player who mixed cocaine and fentanyl. We got a lot of people who are dying off of fentanyl overdoses. And I think it's just because people are in pain, like they actually need help, but don't know how to get it or just refuse to. Is kind of how I'll start it off.
Mm-hmm. What say you, Robert?
Let me take a drink first.
Wait a minute.
So, and we're off.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do we start it off? That's probably the hardest question. Because like you said, it's a bunch of different layers. I already mentioned access, but I would probably, before I even mention access, would mention, it's the word I want to use here, being able to recognize, one, what it is, when there are problems, and then number three, how to fix them, and then after that, the access to maybe the fixes.
Right.
So we have to, a couple different things. We have to first recognize that black people, especially black men in general, because we're all three black men here, have a issue with health.
Yes.
In general. We don't even have to put the mental part on it. So health in general. Many of us don't get the physicals we're supposed to get, or preventative stuff that we're supposed to get. They get, early detection, yada, yada, yada. So we first have to recognize that throughout history, we have often put our health on the back burner to, work or act like there's no issue and stuff like that. So, and those are even sometimes not just those are problems that we even know about. We all got like relatives and cousins and uncles who may have oh man, I had this and they never healed right. You know what I'm saying? Like they have never seen a doctor in their life for them. Now, when you talk about mental health, the issue is even worse because most mental health issues don't always have a quote unquote symptom. They have usually a occurrence or instance. So
or a trigger. Something that actually triggers
which causes the occurrence of the interest where you say, wow, something is wrong based on boom, boom, boom. And what we end up having to do is we have to retrace our steps to go back to what the original thing was. But it's kind of like I sold retail for a long time. And I used to sell electronics. And about midway through one year, we picked up mattresses to sell. And I'll use this example that physical health is like a TV. When something breaks, to go see the doctor or to go buy you a new one. Mental health is almost like that mattress. It don't normally break. You can lay on that bed 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But that bed is not going to give you the support. It's not going to give you the night's sleep you need. It's not going to give you all of the things that you're doing that for. So a lot of times, even that same situation, when you're dealing with like something that doesn't have symptoms and it doesn't just, let's say, completely break down and go nowhere, like a bed or mental health, you often have to, look at other things of when you have to do that time. And I say time is probably the biggest thing when you have like a mental health thing, because you have to have a time to decompress. And whether it's speaking to a professional or which I would recommend for most people if they've never done it before, but also just having time set aside for yourself to kind of be able to decompress and put away, a time for your mental health. Like, even if it's, like I tell people, everybody, if you can put 5 minutes a day, if you can put 5 minutes a day in the beginning of the day, that'll really set up the rest of your day. So it's kind of like being able to know that, recognize that, and then the access to that comes like kind of down the road, even though I think it's important. Right. Because when you see other people access it, then you're more prone to do it. But you kind of got to like recognize there might be a problem, possibly, even if I can't see it.
And you know what? I'll add on to that, because that's exactly where I was going, Bobby. There is one of the things that helped me a lot, and I'm talking decades ago, someone broke it down to me just like this. They said, if you were in a car accident, somebody T-boned you, whatever, ran a red light, brakes went out, whatever, and you were in this really bad accident and had to get rushed to the hospital, you fully expect that I'm going to go to the hospital. You fully expect the ambulance is going to come get me. You fully expect that I'm going to be in a cast, or they may have to do some surgery. Um, I may have to go through some therapy, some physical therapy. I'm going to go to my PT sessions and I'm going to do that. And we expect it. Being an athlete, I can't tell you how many times I've had to do some physical therapy on my knees, and so we expect that when it comes to the physical, but a lot of times, whenever we have the mental issues that we're talking about, the mental health aspect of it, we oftentimes stigmatize that like there's shame associated with it. There's no shame in me having to go, do physical therapy because I just had shoulder surgery. No. If I want my arm to work, then that's what I'm going to do. And there's no shame associated with it, even though I have to slow down and take the time. It's the shame element of it, I think, that honestly creates the stigma to mental health, not realizing that everybody has something. You could live the perfect, pristine life. Guess what? Your parents are eventually going to die. You're going to lose a best friend. You're going to lose somebody you love. You're going to witness something and see something that is going to cause some type of trauma. I don't care how perfect you want your life to be. And just like you were saying about health in general, we sometimes hide behind that invincibility of I don't need it. And so, again, like you were broadening it out, it's like, no, I'm not going to get my prostate checked. You're old enough. You need to. Right. Or I'm not going to, no, I'm not taking, medication for whatever. Listen, the true story, I really struggled with the whole diabetes thing because I didn't want to accept the fact that I was diabetic. I'm like, I'm healthy. I eat great. I'm training, bodybuilding, whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. And the doctor told me, he said, it's like a car. Okay. Those cars come off the lot. They come off the assembly line, and many of them have defective parts. So he said, basically, you are genetically predisposed to being diabetic. It is not your diet. It is not your lifestyle. None of that. You are genetically predisposed because you have a weak pancreas. And the American diet does not support that, even if you're eating clean or whatever. And the same thing is true when it comes to mental health. The society we live in puts us in a place where we see a lot of very traumatic things. We experience a lot of things that if we would just be willing to talk it out, and it does require some trust. I mean, nobody likes to walk up to a stranger and just, tell their business. And it doesn't mean that therapists are perfect, Yeah. But that's kind of the thing is that we need to be at least seeking, because guess what? If I went to a doctor and I didn't like what I got, I would go to another doctor and get a second opinion or a third opinion. Yeah. I wouldn't just be like, well, you know what? I had a bad experience when I went to a therapist one time, so I'm never going back. No, yeah. The issue still remains. And going back to what you were saying, Bobby, it's like if I recognize that even if I don't know what it's called, before I got diagnosed with diabetes, I had no idea what was going on with my body, but I knew I was peeing a lot. Like, and then my father told me, he was like, because he's diabetic, he told me, he said, if you're drinking a ton of water and you're peeing a lot, you probably need to go talk to your doctor. And so whenever we, I guess my thought is whenever we have the mental health conversation, it's important for people to understand it's like there's no shame in what I'm telling you. Just be willing to get the help so we can get rid of that, whatever it is, because otherwise you're going to end up hurting the people that you love, hurting yourself over something that really doesn't have to be that hard.
Right. But one thing, I was going to say the one thing you mentioned, if you didn't like the advice you got from one doctor, you go to a second doctor and stuff like that. But right now, I think all three of us can attest that a lot of people use social media as
Oh God,
as a therapist,
please
and
don't.
that is the worst. The internet, if you are looking to become whole, the internet is the worst place to go to try to find
Man.
trying to find healing, because that's where a lot of people um, actually become more hurt is
Yeah.
the expectations from the internet.
Mhm.
We talked about recognition and things like that, but like I'll say, 2020, um, I spent, like, without even realizing, I spent most of 2020 depressed. We was locked in the house. We was and I worked from home, and I had a job where my team that I sat with, my team was in New York, so it was just me all day on a computer in the walls, and then outside of that, I still did music and producing and things like that. So again, guess what? That's just me again. So I spent a lot of alone time, and I love me some me, but don't nobody need to be that alone. Like, we wasn't made to be that way, and so once we started getting back outside, I realized and was able to reflect, like, yo, I think I was depressed for 2020. Like, I didn't,
Yeah.
and it wasn't something that, I took it out on other people or anything like that, but it could have got to that point. But I have a really strong support system that, people such as Billy that, I trust, that I can have those conversations with. But
Mhm.
you really do need to develop a circle that at least you can have the ideas and the conversations before, even if you hesitant on getting, to a professional, at least develop a circle of intelligent people
Yeah. Find somebody. Get you a circle. Yeah.
that definitely is a judgment free, won't spend or spread your business somewhere else, but people that you can trust with information to be able to start to heal. Because and I don't, I can only speak from the Black community. There's a lot of people of us that are dealing with trauma that start back from childhood,
Yeah.
and how our parents raised us and things like that, are triggering effects that last for generations. I'm reading a book called Do Hard Things right now, and that's how the book starts off, is, hey, were your parents supportive of things, or were they strictly just like critical of the things that you did? Like, if you didn't score in a game or something like that,
Mhm.
did they still show affection, or did they hold off and start criticizing? And it's just,
Right.
it becomes a downward slope. So so yeah, I mean, that was kind of my other point on that. But Bobby, I know you were about to say something.
Yeah, and actually, you said something important there. So let me. It kind of goes back to what he was saying earlier, as far as when he was talking about. He said if using the bathroom a lot and you're drinking a lot of water, you might be diabetic. Um, we have to realize a couple of different things. One, we like the first generation of therapy, Black people.
Mm.
Mhm.
Like, we like the first
Yes.
generation.
Where
We
it's
trying to
even
figure it out.
okay to even question and
We're
bring it
trying,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to figure it out. Um, and that's why I said, like, when you said that, we have to recognize that, like, we get so much from our parents, and some of the things that and I say this to my son, for y'all that don't know, I'm from Cincinnati. I'm in Atlanta, taking my son to visit Morehouse. He will be attending college there. But one of the things I always try to tell my son is, like, look, man, I'm gonna give you really good advice. I really am. But you have to understand that my advice, at least some of it, is not going to pertain to your situation, because you're in a different scenario than me. And there are going to be times where I'm not going to know something that you need to know. But that doesn't, because I don't know it, doesn't mean you're not responsible for figuring it out, because I can't tell you. The same thing with, like, the therapy or anything else that would come into that thing. I mean, it's good when you have people around you that can recognize it and say, hey, this happened to me. This might be this for you. But when our parents didn't go to therapy, or when our parents had a bunch of stuff like that where they didn't know how to, they didn't know how to address it and stuff like that, it's a little bit harder. And we have a lot of bad habits. And I'm going to wrap up, but the last thing I want to say is that, particularly in our community, when I speak about things that our parents and our generation gave us before us, was an over hyper sense of being independent, and
Mm.
not and having to do everything by yourself,
I
and
don't
being
need
mentally strong
anybody.
by. And we have to go. And I say this all the time. There is absolutely nothing created that was great that was created by one individual, no matter what it is. And that goes for people too. It at least took your mother and father to get you here, and a bunch of other people to get you wherever you are. So I think that goes into that too. So
Absolutely. And I'll just say this really quickly. Andre was talking about like, those finding people that you can bounce things off of. And I think about how like Andre and I especially over COVID, it might be a 5 minute conversation, but it was like, ooh, because sometimes we have it in our mind that it means I got to sit here and have a full intervention like they do on what's that A&E, where they get the whole family together and they surround you in the living room. But it's like no.
yeah.
Sometimes it's just 5 minutes, and I share that same thing Andre said because I remember over COVID.
Intervention. That was
Yeah, it's hilarious. The greatest cry ever. That dude.
Right. That's how I didn't think about what it was.
Yes.
I was like, what is that called with the show?
Intervention, yes. But that's the thing. And then we expected we gonna cry like him because somebody just broke us down. And sometimes it's just a quick 5 minute, 10 minute conversation just to throw it out there and let people, just remind you that you're okay. I preached for over a year to an empty church, to a mostly empty church. And it was weird, but I remember somebody sent something to me. I happened to see this where I was feeling some kind of way about it. It was really breaking me down. And I remember I saw TD Jakes. He's down in Dallas, Texas, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw him share about the emotional breakdown that he was having by continuing his ministry and preaching and teaching and everything on Zoom because everybody was distant from COVID. And to hear how he was going through it, it made me, honestly, it felt like, you know what? I'm glad I'm not the only one. And that's what's so important is to understand you're not the only one. My church, my church is tiny, compared to, TD Jakes. But just understanding that everybody goes through something. There's no shame in it. And so I guess we can leave that there. But let's get to our next topic. And let me sit up in my chair a little bit because it's going to get a little spicier. All right. And I'm just going to throw it out here. Yeah, take a sip. I'm just going to throw it out here.
For the record, this is the water. This is the drink. So we do balance over here.
Okay. You stay hydrated. There you go.
Hey,
gotta stay hydrated.
You got to do both. It's balance.
Wow. I have to remember that for the next show. All right, but Black women lacking appreciation. Black women lacking appreciation. Is it real or is it perceived? I have nothing to add to that except for the question. Black women lacking appreciation, is that a real thing or is that something perceived? Because if we look at social media, if we watch television or pay attention to what we hear in like radio and in media, there's this really large uproar about Black women not being appreciated. They talk about how they're the strongest and they're the least appreciated. And I just want to know, is that something that maybe is real and we need to spend more time flushing that out and dealing with it? Or is that a perception that maybe isn't totally based in reality?
So let me have a drink. Let me have two.
I thought you might need that.
One.
Yes.
Okay, so it was funny. Andre sent me the thing, and I saw that on there, and I said, "Man, that's a deep question right there." So I would say this: is it real? I would say the feeling that Black women have of being underappreciated is 100% real. That's real. That feeling of that is real. There's no way to deny it. We see it. There's plenty of examples of it. Whether you think they should or shouldn't feel appreciated, that's a different story. But fact of the matter is, they definitely feel unappreciated. Nice. So we have to. That's number one. We have to at least recognize that, whether they're right or wrong for how they feel, whatever. Number two, you have to go into, okay, why do you guys feel that way? What is it that makes you guys feel underappreciated? And that's the thing where you get a little bit murky, especially whenever you talk to women about why they feel unappreciated. But I would say a couple of different things. Number one is it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about we have this over hyper sense of where we feel like we have to be independent. And because we feel like a lot of times we have to be independent, we can't depend on anybody, we can't talk to anybody, we can't, this whole, I don't have to, because women are taught this more than men are taught this, in my opinion, this I don't want to have to depend on nobody thing. I think that it gets over exaggerated than what is actually happening, as opposed to the feelings are real, but I'm saying that the feelings I don't think are 100% matching towards what has actually happened, because if we're being honest, but what we see, there's not a time, and I don't want to flip this around on be a male versus female thing either.
Right.
Understand.
Because that could easily, I don't want to go there, but
that's not the conversation. I understand.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But what I want to say is that I think that black men and black women feel the same way. I think both feel unappreciated. If you ask them both, if you sat them both down and had a survey, they would both say they feel unappreciated for what it is they offer. I think that a lot of times, though, is that women in particular, men also, are looking for appreciation in the wrong places. It's like, the old song used to say, looking for love in all the wrong places. Some of us are looking for appreciation in all of the wrong places. So those are the things. But the answer to the first part, yeah, the feeling is real, but I'm not sure that the feeling and what's actually happened is the same thing. And I think that's one of the disconnects that we have, and how to figure out how we can work through that and make that so it doesn't feel that way.
Right. So it gets back to, is perception reality? And based on, and I agree with what Bobby just said, which is, I can't tell you your feeling is wrong. But the perception may be your reality, but overall, it may not be rooted in like actual facts. There, like, all of us have been online. I know we just mentioned, don't go online for validation, but the things that we see where, rest in peace to the brother Kevin Samuel, he had a huge following or disdain, whichever. He had a whole bunch of people listening to him.
There's a lot of love, hate,
right, for whatever reason they were listening to him, but. One of the things that he always shot down was the myth that black men don't marry black women. And, black men are either dead, in jail, or gay. Like, and all these different things that he would point out that, there's actual scientific data and research and studies that prove that that's not, the case. Like, I think it's something like 91% of black men are married to black women.
Absolutely.
But when you get to, let social media tell it, all black men want is a white girl and things like that. So I think, black women have definitely carried the torch, if we talk about the civil rights era, all the way through, elections of President Obama and different things. Like, they've always been the hugest not benefactor, but hugest center stone of each movement. And anytime, and you can tell who
they carry the load, right?
Right. You can tell who the load carrier is because who the commercials are geared towards, and who the ads geared towards, and who, and so when Joe Biden wanted our vote, he went to the black women. He didn't go to the black men. He went to black women, right. And was like, hey.
First thing he said, but in fact, it was Clyburn told him, promise that when you put somebody on the Supreme Court, it's going to be a black woman,
and you'll get elected.
You'll lock it up. You'll be elected, and that's exactly what happened. Yep.
So we understand the importance. So all that to say, we understand the importance of black women. We understand what they go through. But the one thing that never really gets discussed enough, and it's because of the confusing messages that happen, are that I think the hardest people on black women are other black women. And we don't, but it becomes but I guess they can't say that. So it ends up being a male, black men don't appreciate it. It's just no, wait, black women don't appreciate black women.
We say men are doing what they've done for millenniums. It's nothing changed, And it's interesting with that, Andre. I think about how, and I'm I'm gonna get a little wonky here. I'm gonna talk sports. Um, One of the things, and you guys probably can't see it, I'm wearing my Bengals shirt today. Um, and it's funny because I think about how badly Joe Burrow got beat up behind that offensive line that was just porous, right?
Right.
And I bring that up because while the quarterback makes all the money and gets all the commercials and he's out in front and he is expected to be the leader of the team, it has nothing to do with the value of his left tackle or his right guard or the center that is actually calling out the protections. Now, your center doesn't make as much money as your star quarterback does. And we can say, I mean, would you argue that he's more important? Well, and the reason why I use that analogy is because very often people don't get affirmation. And, being, playing sports and football, and obviously you guys understand this, whenever you talk about offensive linemen, an offensive lineman is not just good because he's big or strong or he can make the protections and whatever, he can run block. But there's a certain mentality that comes with being an offensive lineman.
Right.
And part of that mentality is I don't need a bunch of pats on the back and I just want to smash somebody, right? I just want to crush somebody. It's the same thing in the music industry. There's a lot of people that, I mean, they can rap, they got bars. I mean, they can go. And then you got other people who they actually just have an ear for the music. Some of your best, engineers, like they just have it for that sound. You don't even know their name. You don't know, you might see if you really read on the, does anybody even look at CDs anymore or do they even buy them? But if you did, you would look and you might see some credits. But there's a lot of writers and the point is that all of these things happen. And it goes back to what Bobby was saying, where it's like nobody creates anything by themselves. And so when I think of this perception of Black women not being appreciated, yes, the feeling is definitely real. I don't argue with anybody's feelings, but it's not rooted in something that's real. A lot of times, it's a insecurity that comes from lack of affirmation. And so the real problem is not what you're doing isn't working or what you're doing. You're not being basically you're not being validated. And I feel like unfortunately the validation that you seek is not actually the validation that you need a lot of times. When you think about marriages, I think about my marriage and I think about my wife and I love my wife. But very often, and I'm just, as a man, I'm just being, full disclosure here. My struggle, I don't struggle with like cheating on my wife. I don't think about other women. I'm not out here chasing skirts. But if I weren't receiving validation from my wife, I would be far more likely to be given to something like that. And so when we think about that whole appreciation piece and Black women not feeling because it's out there, it's everywhere. Black women talking about how, they just don't feel like anybody treats them right. The fact is, you got to find the validation in the right places. That independent spirit. And you brought up Kevin Samuels, and I've taken some heat for this because while I don't agree with everything Kevin Samuels, said and did, the fact of the matter is he brought a very honest kind of levity to the conversation that said, look, like my daddy used to always tell me, you want to be treated like them, then I'll treat you like them. But you may not like it. It may not be what you wanted. And I think some of that goes into that conversation too, because the perception isn't always the reality. And in reality, what we all want is validation. We want to be affirmed. We want to make sure that we are valued. And so from that standpoint, yes, I think we have to, as Black men, we have to make it a point to validate Black women. But I also think what Andre said was so true. It's friendly fire. out here. Yeah, there's an awful lot of black women sniping other black women out of jealousy or hatred or just their own insecurities. And so rather than deflect and blame, we sometimes you got to look inward. As a
Yeah,
black
shout
man,
out.
as I'm saying all this.
I mean, well, since everybody brought him, well, shout out to the late great Kevin Samuels,
Yes.
who's bringing balance to the force. I think it goes back to, like I said, like I was saying in the beginning, it's kind of like I said, looking for validation in the wrong places, because when people and I've talked to women about this several different times, and I always ask them. My question is always, if you don't feel appreciated, can you tell me what the appreciation looks like? What is it that you are not currently getting that you would like to receive? And then who would you like to receive it from?
Right.
Because normally it's not that you're not receiving appreciation. It's normally 9 times out of 10, you're not getting what it is from who you want. And if we're talking about women, it's usually a man. Let's just be completely honest. I
Right.
mean, or now don't get me wrong, they also look for appreciation in their girlfriends with their little, girl, I'm doing it all by myself posts. We already know what those are. But what they're really looking for, and I'm being honest, they're the only reason that those are as important as they are right now is because most of them are not getting the appreciation from the man that they chose who is giving that appreciation to them. One of the number one stats I ever got from Kevin Samuels was that 18% of the men create basically 90% of the babies. So there's a small select of these men who are doing this, and a lot of these women are looking to be appreciated by this small select group of men who, to be completely honest with you, they don't appreciate you because they got a lot of you. I'm not trying to be funny. Those are
diminished value because
those are the guys that you guys want. You can call them whatever you want. He coined high value, but let's just talk about those are the ones you want. Whatever term you want to give it to him. He's the good looking guy that's funny, got money, tall, and can tell jokes. You know what I'm saying? Like he's always been
whatever.
Beginning of the time. Yeah. And you guys all want that, but you all want to be appreciated by those guys. When there are other guys who would appreciate you, there are other people who would appreciate it. It's no different than a job. If you work in a job and they don't appreciate you, go to the other job. Who appreciate you, and as the great Beyonce said, put some respect on my check. So appreciation comes in different forms. So I think that's a lot of times, and sometimes women look for appreciation from a guy that really don't appreciate them, or when they don't, a lot of times they also look at either the women that they hang with, or also their careers. And we all know these jobs don't appreciate nothing. But what can you do for me? What can you do for me today? That's it. Right. That's all they really appreciate. So we get caught up in that cycle, and it's really hard to break out of it.
Man, I need a little bit of what you drinking at this point. but that's so true. In fact, I just, believe it or not, just earlier today, I just happened to run along and see that Kevin Samuels clip you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Where he talked about how you're chasing after the same men. And you don't want to accept the fact that there's an awful lot of men that will treat you and validate you and will support you and love you, and you can build a really great legacy with them, but you wanted that guy. You didn't want the guy because you thought he's kind of lame, he's kind of boring, or
you don't want Russell Wilson. You don't want Russell, you want Future.
Yes. Right. And what's funny about that too? And we almost can just drop the mic right here, because I think about how that whole Future and Russell Wilson conversation was so powerful in my opinion, because what you see is not only did she basically decide, you know what, I don't want that. I want something different, so I'm going to do what I have to do to make this work with something different. But it was amazing how much criticism from other black women that Sierra got for essentially being willing to go after something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I say this a lot of times to a lot of people. You can have what you want, and you can get what you want. But 9 times out of 10, you can't get it the way you want to get it.
Yep.
I want to have a great body. I want to be in shape, but I swear I can't be eating Cheetos and pizza on the weekend with double scoops of ice cream. I can't get it that way. But a lot of us not only want what we want it the way that we want it. You want the guy who is the high value, whatever you want to call him, high value man, but you want to get him the way you want to get him, which is, doing whatever it is you want to do that you think he should be attracted to you over everyone else.
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way. I wanted to get the job I've got now by sitting on the couch and, playing spades and Madden all day. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. They wanted me to come to work. You know what I'm saying? I charge my computer, but
well, what's crazy with that though too is I think about how it's actually so powerful that you say that, Bobby, because I think about how getting it the way that we want to get it, that's not the move. And I have I have 3 sisters. I'm the only boy in the family. And I know a lot of different women. And I can't tell you how many times I've encountered people who will say, black women who will say, I am marriage material, right? And their idea of marriage material, they'll be like, I'm smart, I'm educated, I'm clean, I've got good credit and whatever. And it's like, and none of that matters. Like you were saying, getting it the way you want to get it. Like you think, as you said, that high value man, you think getting that high value man, you got to drop it like it's hot. And no, that doesn't impress him. That's not going to move him. And so getting back even to the original question and conversation, it's important to understand that you are appreciated, but in order to get that appreciation, go to the right places, right? I'm bodybuilding, right? So guess what? You know where I go for some validation? To the gym.
Yeah.
I go to the gym and I train and I hang out in those circles. And that's where I'm also going to get the most critical analysis. That's where I'm also going to get you need to work on your shoulders. You need to take up your cardio.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, you're cutting your form off, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing to accept the fact that sometimes, and it's not just black women, it's all of us. We have to be willing to accept the fact that you have to be willing to go to the right places. And that means choosing the right man and choosing the right career and choosing the right environment and choosing to cut certain people off. Because sometimes that perception gets skewed by people who are pouring stuff and telling you stuff in your ear. You think that's your best friend and you think that's your girl and she's got your best interest at heart. But actually, she's throwing some poison out there. So you got anything else, Andre? Or
No, I think we good because the only thing I keep. Yeah, I think we covered it. The only thing I keep thinking is that miserable people tend to make other people miserable when they hang around them. It's about. I mean, it's about finding the right. It's kind of like the mental health conversation. It's about finding the right people to surround yourself with that will uplift you because. There's a lot of mixed messages that women send out, and I'm sure we'll cover that on a different show, which is, I want you to treat me like a person. I'm just more than a physical object. But then when we look online, that's all you showing is your assets and,
cleavage
and all of that, because that's what
orange eyelashes.
That's what you think men want. And most of the time, y'all are absolutely incorrect on what men want and what attracts men. Like for long term. You can get the short term, gratification, but the long term is deeper than what you can show me twerking on the internet. And you look at even the celebrities, the Lisa Ray's who want men to pay all their bills and all of that. And she's single. The ideals that they have. I think there's probably. I know I said I didn't have anything to say, but I just thought about this. The ideals that they have fit a generation that we're no longer in.
Yeah.
We way beyond, one income households and Pop's you got to pay all my bills and things like that. Yeah. Granddad did that because damn electricity was $15 a month. Like we ain't there no more.
Completely different economy.
So, But then they also want to be independent at the same time. I don't need no man, but if I get one, he got to pay everything. Like there's a lot of mixed things that happen, and Bobby has coined the term logic, which is with logic with a W, because some things don't seem to balance all the way out. Like Bobby was at my wedding. My best friend said that happiness is a moving target, and
I quote that to this day.
Man, and for that, I think women keep moving the target on what their happiness is too. Even outside of a relationship, I just think what makes them happy continues to move, and because they are shaped so much by what social media is and what social media people who care absolutely nothing about them, by the way, shape their opinions so much that they can't find true happiness because what is accepted keeps moving. And I think until we figure out how to ground ourselves in what is fundamental to us, I think we're gonna struggle. I think that is my end statement there.
Case closed. Well, let's go to our next topic then, and we'll go ahead and finish it off with this. The cost of getting the bag. The cost of getting the bag. We think about that term even. People, use it. It's so cliche now. People talk about getting the bag. But is there a limit to what we should do or be willing to do, put ourselves through, put our families through in order to get the bag? Are we in a place where maybe we have allowed money to, or even if it's not necessarily dollars and cents, maybe it's success, maybe it's fame, maybe it's our careers, whatever it is, not just the dollars and cents, but is there a limit that we should put on it to where it's like, you know what, getting the bag ain't everything? And I'll just open it up and leave it right there. Either of you can just take it.
I'll go. Because I think I agree with just the very last statement, getting the bag, getting everything. We tend to quote, what is the profit of man to gain the world but lose his soul? And I think a lot of times, we have this mythical idea of what success is, but success tends to always surround money. Like that, I think that shift has happened where, like, if I'm not making six figures, then I'm not successful. But my father, his father, like, they just worked hard and had a successful life because of the hard work. Not necessarily the dollars may not have always added up to be that, but like I think we miss out on so many things trying to chase money nowadays that we are giving up. Well, like we don't spend time with our kids, like all of these different things, because we still, I think Steve Harvey quoted it the best, and my minister, Joseph Walker, said the same thing, which is, if you want to truly be successful, you got to get up early and do that so that you don't miss the rest of the day. Like, but I think we still try to squeeze the same hustle into 8 hours that we should be trying to squeeze into 14. Just because part of being successful, like, it doesn't do me anything. It doesn't do me any good to have a 6-figure career and do all this if I'm missing dance recitals and I'm missing, birthdays, and I'm missing all these, just the small moments, like first steps of kids and things like that, things that they'll remember. But because we've allowed money to kind of replace everything else, I think that's where we struggle on the definition of success in an area that we shouldn't.
I'll pick it up there. It's interesting. Paul and I, earlier this week, we're having this conversation about daddy ball, right? Mm-hmm. Daddy, for those who don't know, daddy ball is where you have one of the players' dad, whether it's football, baseball, whatever, and then you have him as a coach, and then he is basically showing favoritism to his son, right? He's advantaging and leveraging his coaching for his son, right? And it happens all the time. We kind of know that happens, especially in little league sports and stuff like that. Less so at the high school level, but you still see it even there. And one of the interesting things, I was pushing back on him a little bit about it, because I coached 3 different teams at this point, and my son is only on one of them. And it was interesting because one of the things I was telling him was, I coach baseball, even though I honestly don't want to coach. And it's, believe it or not, very hard to get parents to volunteer to coach because the parents are so awful. They're not grateful. They don't appreciate your sacrifice, the whole nine. But I told them, I said, as miserable as it is, I do it because it gives me the time that I need with my son because I work so much. I have my own business. And that is the time. That's something that not only do we have time to interact and me give him life lessons, he gets to see me and watch me with other people and other kids. These are experiences that we'll have for a lifetime. Now, I could, to your point, Andre, like I could actually take that 3 or 4 hours and replace it with something else that would give me more money, but at what cost? At what price am I basically choosing? Because that's the fact is that, it's like when they talk about matter can neither be created or destroyed. Well, time can't either. Okay. You're either going to sacrifice your sleep or sacrifice your peace or sacrifice your money or sacrifice a relationship you're going to have to choose your sacrifices. And too often I think there's a glorification of the bag. There's this glorification of the money that says you're winning and you're successful. And then what people will do is they'll put that bright, shiny object out there and they'll point out somebody who's worth $50 million. And it's like, yeah, there's like 30 of him on the planet. You know what I'm saying?
In the world, yeah.
Right, in the world. And then you got like most people, like, because I think of it this way. It's like my success is hollow if it does not involve my wife and my kids. It is very shallow. And it isn't sustainable, frankly. But that's just my principles and my priorities and what I've said. Other people, they may not want to get married. They may not want to have kids, and that's fine. I'm not judging that necessarily. But the point is that I think we have to be more principled in the way that we chase after our dreams and really be willing to, and I'll just say this and leave it here. I've had to, on probably 2 different occasions now in my life, I'm 46, at least 2 different times, I've had to admit that I was wrong about what I considered to be successful, what I considered to be me getting to where I wanted to be. I've had to reassess it and scrap it and redraw it up and be okay with that.
Right.
And just be okay with the fact that, you know what? Yeah, back then I thought this and that's where I was going. But you know what? No, that was wrong. And that's okay. That's not success. That's not going to work. And chasing this money isn't nearly as important now as it was, back at a different point in my life.
I'm going to take another drink. Story time.
Nice.
So
gather around, children.
Yeah, gather around. It's story time. Story time with Uncle Mike Drop. So as I told y'all earlier, I'm down here in Atlanta. I'm taking my son on this tour of Morehouse. So we were on the tour. We were going to see the buildings. This is built by, I don't remember. I can't remember anymore. But anyway, we happened to run into one of the faculty members while we were on this tour. Of course, he stopped us and he gave us the whole. I told my son and my wife that I said he basically pulled the Lawrence Fishburne higher learning professor type move on us.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't know. I was laughing. I said because I see it, but it was nice. He went around and he asked who are you? What's your name? What's your major? And he did that to a couple different kids that are in there. He asked my son, what do you want to be in? He asked one of the other kids, what are you here majoring? He said, I'm coming for business. He said, why do you want to be in business? He said, because I like money. And then the next question was, he said, why?
Yes.
And he was stone faced because he didn't have an answer necessarily for that. And to this professor's credit, he kind of led him down a road so that he didn't look so silly, because he knew he had stumped him, but he didn't want to embarrass him in front of
Yeah.
everybody else. And I say all of that to say, um, the goal cannot be money.
Right.
The tool can be money.
Right.
The vehicle can be money, but the goal can never be the money. Because the money is just a tool to get everything else that you have. So if you're out here chasing the bag to provide for your family, if you're out here chasing the bag to give back to your community, if you're out here chasing the bag so that you can put your mother in the house because she had to struggle her whole life, work two jobs, whatever the said goal is, I'm okay with that being the goal. And if you have to get the money to get the goal, I get that. But if your goal is only money, there will never be a point in your life where that's going to be it. Because you could never, people can have a lot of things. I've done it. I've never heard anybody say I got too much money. You can never have enough of it. But when you look at things like what you were just saying earlier, and I've been through this too, and most of us probably, especially at this age, you're like 45, we didn't been through that age where we like, man, we didn't chase the bag. And to be perfectly honest with you, I got a whole lot of money, but I ain't got a whole lot of nothing else. Like I don't really feel good. Like I said, I worked retail for 20 something years, and I had my son in retail, and it was like, after a while, you working so much and you making so much money, but just flying out the door because you're compensating for things that your time not being there, things that you wouldn't be able to do. I've told other people this before. I remember when I worked one time when he was cute. His mother was pregnant with him, and I went out and I bought a $1,000 massage chair because I couldn't give her massages because I was working so damn much. So. Wow. And like I tell people, well, during that season, let's just be honest, it was $1,000 massage chair. Now, in the tax bracket I basically had to make $2,000 more to even get that $1,000 massage chair. So now we get back to two of the things that I always tell people whenever we have conversations about when there are no situations or even a thing is like, is the goal is the point, is the goal bigger than the thing you're trying to accomplish? Because if getting money is the goal, then you just accomplish your goal. Everything else goes to the wayside. But if your goal was to get money for your family, to put your family in a certain situation, then you keep chasing that money. It's never going to get your family there because you're not there, and you're going to keep, having to overcompensate and stuff like that. So right. You can't let the money, and I'm going to say money, but I'm also going to say things because it's the cars, it's the houses, it's the phones, it's the shoes, it's the everything else. When the things that you start to own you and control you, you're in a bad spot. And a lot of us have been there before. So that's why I say, like, if you cannot just have money as the goal, it can only be like an intermediary goal. Like you went to college to get a degree to get the job. Like the goal wasn't just to go to college. You know what I'm saying? Like it was to do something else.
Yes.
Yeah, it was to do something else with it. So right. I mean, it can never be your end goal. If it's your end goal, you might as well just call it a wrap. You're never going to be happy. You're never going to get anywhere you want to be.
And what you said is so perfect too. I love how you said that when you said the professor, the faculty, they dropped him easy, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't want to like shame him necessarily.
No.
But he said something that I felt like, he wanted him to think and really follow the progression and see where this is ultimately going. And I think about how, not enough people honestly even ponder that question. Why do I feel like I need more money? Why is it that I feel like why do you love money so much? And one of my mentors told me one time, he said one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they get too much stuff. They get too many things. He said, if you're working on a house and you're thinking, man, I got this big house and I'm going to put it together and it's going to take me a long time because I'm doing it by myself. And he's like, but if that's the case, that's fine. But you don't need 50 different hammers. You only have one hand, one arm. You need one really good hammer. You don't need 50 of them. Well, yeah, but the house is so big and I got all these rooms okay, but you can still only hammer one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And too often we want to amass quantity. We want Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think about my lifestyle, and it's like you said, you can never have too much. Nobody ever says that. But the difference between having $10 million and $50 million in the bank for 99.9% of humanity is negligible.
Zero. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's like all it does is it prevents you from getting more unnecessary stuff than you otherwise could if you had $50 million. Like 10 million is like way too much. Now here's the thing: I'm not going to turn down a project that comes along. Somebody wants to offer me a contract, I'll take the 10 million. But again, I will only do that knowing that it is not going to take me away from my priorities. And I
Yeah.
think that's where we get back to that conversation about, you know, is it worth it to chase it back? Because I know a lot of people that it's like, man, I finally got my big break and they're acting. You know, they finally got their big break in Hollywood. They got a couple of roles in some movies and they're starting to make some real money. But they're like, you know, again, no shame against that. I'm not dogging them, but it's like you're two divorces down and you never see your kids. Like,
Yeah.
was it worth it?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, also,
My,
when you look
my
at
mother used to always ask me that every time I got in trouble at school. Was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Yeah. Was it really worth it?
It's an important question.
Yeah.
It's an important question.
Yeah, there's a couple times, where you look, or a couple instances where you look at like a Dave Chappelle, where
Yes.
he gave up the 61 million,
Yes.
or I think it was 61 from Comedy Central, because they wanted to change things at the crux of what he believed. And I think that's where
fundamental principles that he held, he was like, this is a violation of my actual principles. Like,
right.
no, it's not worth it.
And so, like, are you giving up peace, like your sense of peace, to be able to have stuff? Like, and me and Bobby go way back, but one of the things he helped me with last year was a life insurance symposium I was putting on to try to get people to discuss life insurance and just what it is and what it can do for you and things like that. But the one thing that we always fell back to is at the end, when you pass away, because nobody's leaving this joint alive, do you have just a bunch of stuff, or do you have something that you can pass on to the next generation? I think a lot of us look at television and look at celebrities and look at other people's definitions of success and chase that, where, oh, I got to have a Louis bag. All right, now I got my Louis bag. Well, I need another one too. I need Louis suitcase. I need and you start going down this name brand saga, and there's nothing wrong with it. In essence, like, I mean, I got a Gucci bag, like, but I didn't need the matching shoes and the matching overcoat and everything else to go with it. Like, I set a goal, I want to have a Gucci bag, and that was it. And I think a lot of times we start accumulating all this stuff, and we keep talking about money, and there's never enough. Like, there's a show on BET Plus called Trap Queens, and the show itself is dope. It's just a documentary of people who, chose activities that were, may have started off fine and became illegal and things like that. But every one of them had a downfall of greed. Was the downfall to
they went one too far.
Right. And even though there were signals, like, and if you watch, like, I would highly recommend it. It's just a documentary series of, them going over people's stories. And every one of them had a voice that told them, yeah, this is bad. Like, this, we've gone too far. And every time they got caught was when they didn't listen to that voice, going to the next step. And it gets back to, and the reason I'm bringing this up, because it gets back to what Billy was saying, like, yo, I have a voice that tells me I can go spend this 4 hours somewhere else, but should I invest it into my son? And if you listen to that voice that says, yo, I got a bag to chase, I'm gonna go this, like, you're going to a level that may be too far, that, now you don't have a relationship with your son or daughter that you could have had if you'd have just listened to the voice that said, hey, you don't need to pick up that extra shift. These people don't care about you. You covering this shift for, an extra 4 hours, 5 hours may not mean a lot, personally to you. Physically, you can do it. But what if your son or daughter was waiting up for you, hoping you was going to come home because they had an awesome day at school and they wanted to tell you about it. Now, you driving that wedge further and further, and at no point am I saying that you don't need to do things to sustain life. I'm just saying, and I think all of us are saying the same thing. Like, what level are you willing to take it to before it becomes too far, where you're no longer just sustaining what you need to live, but are you going too far to the point where it's in excess and costing you something else? Because everything does come at a price, and I just think we need to reevaluate what is happiness, and like what is our definition of success. I think I'm gonna give people homework. So I think this will be the first time we've ever done this on the Gray Mountains podcast. Let's give everybody homework assignment to come up with a definition of success. Write it down and see if you are working towards it or if you are exceeding that. Like, I guess working against that is really the best way to put that. Right. Just because if you're going in excess of what you feel like success is, then it's not benefiting you. So that's the homework assignment. Let's write down that definition of success and see where you're headed towards.
Jay-Z, he was popular for one time. He did an interview. He talked about back when he was younger and he was selling drugs. And he said, they were like, but you're so smart and everything. He said, I was smart because I knew when it was time to get out. I knew when it was time to get out. He was like, I was just trying to survive. I was trying to make it. I was just doing what was native to me. He said, but that, like you said, that little voice was like, okay, you need to get out. And he said right after that, some people he was rolling with got caught up. Now, take it a step further, I'll hear a lot of times, and I pay attention a lot of times. I'll look at these different interviews. I'll see where, like with Dame Dash and different ones, and they'll be talking. And the way that whole thing kind of fell apart, and they kind of went their different directions. But that's yet another example of knowing when it's time to invest in one thing or the other. And I think, just to kind of put a bow on this, when we think about the bag, when we think about getting money, when we think about, even like you said, success, how we define success, too often we have our loyalties and principles tied up in the wrong things. We have them tied up in ego. We have it tied up in reputation. I'm not going to let Andre get the best of me. I'm not going to let, Robert talk about me like this. And so, again, that would be stupid. It's like, I'm not about to, I'm not about to forfeit on my house or my property or my land or my family because my ego is driving me to go this way or whatever. No, I'll be like, you know what? It's not worth it. And sometimes we have to tell ourselves the same thing when it comes to money. One of my sayings I say, I've been saying this for years. All money's not good money.
Yeah.
Right? All money's not good money, and we have to be very mindful. What's that, Kenny Rogers? You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away and when to run. Like, we have to be able to have that gambler's mentality and realize that all money's not good money. And just because you're making more, that does not necessarily mean that you're successful.
So I'm gonna say this: I wasn't always a great student in school. But one of the things I always did in school is I always tried to do my homework while I was still in school.
Yeah.
So I already did my homework that Andre gave us.
Nice.
I'm gonna say my definition of success is to be so successful that I have to redefine what my definition of success is. Because if you don't ever really reach it, like, you know what I'm saying, like, you have to at some point, just like you said, you had to change. It came to a certain point where you said I had to change what it was because now it didn't fit. Because you got to a certain point, so one, you reached your goal, and once you get to the top of the we'll use a little MLK, a little top of the mountaintop, you realize, damn, there's some other mountains over here.
Yeah.
And this one I thought this one stopped here. That was just the clouds.
Yep.
I couldn't even see the rest of the mountain was up top because of the clouds were in the way. And I've had to do that myself. You have, and that's why I say that money can't be, because I'll be honest, that was one of my goals. Let's get to the money. Let's get to the bag. Let's get to this. And then you get the money, you get the bag, and then you're like, well, then what? Like, y'all seen Scarface when he say, is this it?
Yeah.
The eating, the drinking, the smoke. I got the money, I got the girl, and I'm sitting here drunk, depressed at this restaurant, and really, is this it? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I
looking
think
for a high.
Be successful. Yeah. to be successful, you have to redefine what your definition of success is. Whether it was just moving out the projects and now you in something like, man, you know what, I really would like, and we've done that throughout history, especially as not as just men in our everyday lives, but even, as Black people, we've had to redefine what this is. And, first it was, I want to be able to sit at the counter that, the white folks sit at. And then MLK said, well, what good is it sitting at the counter if you can't pay for the meal?
Right.
So, I mean, at some point you have to redefine your success. So I'm going to say that's my definition of success. I'm done with my homework, though.
There you go. You get an A. With that, then, as always, we have our call outs, our APBs to close out our episode. And there's plenty of them to go around. There's plenty of people missing in action. But we'll go ahead and start it off as we always do with Andre. Andre, who's missing that you're calling out this week?
I like to take the non-conventional route to an APB of who I'm looking for. So it's not necessarily a who this week, it is a what. And the what I'm looking for is the money to go to educators. I am saying this because recently there was an article that just came out. I'm trying to find it, but essentially the article came out and said that one of the states is now saying that teachers don't have to have a college degree in order to become teachers. So we continue to move this bar that we have for teachers simply because we don't want to pay what a teacher is worth. So, they ask for, because essentially we're doing it because of the teacher shortage. And there's a teacher shortage because there's not enough money going to teachers to deal with what they have to deal with.
Right.
So, they ask for, security guards and mental health teachers and all these things to go, student resources and things like that to go to school. And what do we say? Best I can do is let you carry a Glock to school. That's my answer. Wow. And, not thinking, because we're all parents. We all just got, Bobby, he has graduated from this, but he's about to experience a different school supply list. But we all had that school supply list where we had to get all these things, and parents is arguing, I don't know why they need to have Crayolas and all these different things on this list, not thinking there's a teacher at the end of this who's already underpaid, underserved, who's about to come out of her pocket because she doesn't want your child to be without. And so the parents we bitch and complain that we got to buy stuff for the teachers. The teachers are already overworked and underpaid. And now the government's still not kicking in extra money. So now we just keep lowering this bar of what expectations are for teachers. Like, you don't have to have a degree. Like, really? How is this going to work out in the long run that you don't even have to have a college degree in order to teach my son or daughter who's trying to get to college? It is baffling me on how we doing this. But all that to say, we done found money for wars. We done found money to bail out airlines. We done found money to bail out banks. We done found money.
Giant telescopes.
Telescopes. Sending we got a space force to study aliens.
A space force.
Can we just pay teachers what they should be worth? Because this is. Wow. I think we just keep putting a Band-Aid over a problem that the cut's never gonna heal, because we're not treating it at the root. Like we sit here and talk about this mental health thing. We're not treating the root. We just putting a Band-Aid over it. So that's my APB is, where the money at, Joe? And whoever the next person is, I'm gonna ask you again, where the money at next president? Because it can't be Joe again. But that's neither here nor there. But where the money at? Because we need the teachers to get paid what they're worth. That's my APB.
I kind of got mixed feelings on this one. But I really want to know where they are. Where are all the Illuminati people at? I remember that it was a time period that pretty much any Black person that had at least $50 in their pocket was linked to the Illuminati. There was a time in my life, I remember I specifically said, I am not successful until that was one of my, I had to redefine it. I said, until the Illuminati calls my phone and says, hey, bro, you made it.
You made it.
Yeah, it's the call. It's a call. I may not get Hall of Fame. I ain't gonna make it to the Hall of Fame. But I want to know where all the Illuminati. When is the last time you heard? Don't get me. Remember, like if you can have a like right now, if they freeze framed it, they'd be like, oh my god, look at that triangle in the corner, and I'd be linked to the Illuminati. What happened to all the Illuminati people, man? I just want
Right.
to. Did it go out of style?
He's like,
Did
do
they
y'all, do
lose
y'all
their
shop at
funding?
Kroger or
Yeah, did they
Publix
lose their
or Food
funding?
Line? Like, where y'all at?
I'm just
Wow,
trying to figure out what happened. That's it.
man.
They didn't
That's it.
survive. They didn't survive
I
COVID.
ain't got my. I have not got my call, people. I'm waiting on my call, people. That's what this all boils down to. I ain't got my call.
Oh my God, that
Does
is
this go to the
strong.
senior committee? Like when in the Hall of Fame, when they don't vote you in, they go like to the senior. Am I in like the
Yeah.
senior Illuminati committee class? Like is somebody gonna have to vote me in because I only got whatever the percentage is? I did not
Wow.
juice people. I didn't take steroids.
You say what you say? You hanging out with Ken Anderson and the cat who was just not quite making the cut.
Right, man. No juicing. I didn't do it either. No.
Wow. Wow, that's strong. Yeah, we seem to conveniently forget about the Illuminati for real. My APB this week is near and dear to my heart. Kind of off the radar, similar to the Illuminati, but not quite to that extent. I need to know where Tavis Smiley and Dr. Cornel West have gone.
Mm.
Now, let me just say this. While Barack Obama was president, it actually hurt me. It actually pained me to see how much time and effort and energy both Tavis Smiley and Dr. Cornel West put into poking holes in his agenda, poking holes into his credibility, challenging him at every turn. They were all over the media. I mean, I'm talking nonstop. And it was done under the guise of being self-critical and being willing to, like, I'm going to be willing to challenge another black man. Like, just because he's black doesn't mean I'm going to just support everything he does. And yet, I find it so interesting that since Obama has left office, they've been deathly silent. And I respect the work and the sheer brilliance of Dr. Cornel West. I respect Tavis Smiley for his contributions to the media, but it disappoints me how you have disappeared. You have literally vanished from the scene now that the person who was in office that was a black man, that now that he's gone, suddenly you don't have anything to say.
Right? I mean, and you had opportunities. Like,
you had a whole, you had nothing but opportunities, right? It's like compared to Barack Obama's 2 terms in office, like that man was squeaky clean. Okay, I'm talking legislatively and on a personal level. You didn't say anything through 4 years of Trump. You haven't said anything through almost 2 years of Joe Biden. You've got nothing but low-hanging fruit to grab, and you said nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing.
So, black man.
Yeah. So, I just want you to come. Just say hi, right? Just get on the talk show. Go talk. Find Ellen or somebody, and just go to Jimmy Kimmel or whatever, and just say hi. Like, make an appearance. Do something, because you literally, I couldn't get rid of you during the 8 years of Obama in office. Now, yeah, I know you're still alive, at least I think. So come out, say something. Let us know you're still there. Let us know that you even care about politics. You even care about governance. now that the black man is no longer in office. So that's all I got. That's my APB.
I think I want to say this before I go though, but if I'm not mistaken, it was also linked to the Illuminati. So this all we got to put this together now. We got to connect the dots.
They all disappeared at the same time.
I'm just saying.
And one last APB, as we've been doing weekly, is for Brittany Griner. We still want justice for her. She just the court case has been put on hold for 11 days to allow the defense to do more research and present a different case. But facts are starting to come out in the court case that she was using cannabis oil to treat chronic pain, which I can imagine a female at 6'9" would have that plays professional sports. And so it's not well, we all knew it wasn't a drug smuggling thing that Russia's trying to pin on her, but you can always go to www.werbg.org to sign a petition, just to let people know that you, or let our government know that you care about this young lady coming back here safely.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Gray Matters. I want to thank our special guest, Robert Anthony, for sitting in for Paul this week. We look forward to seeing you back here next week. And until then, be blessed. Have a great rest of your week.
Peace.